Hello again, everybody. My name is John D. Healy. I do a podcast. It's called It's Good to Talk. Sure, it's good to talk. Before COVID, I got into doing podcasting because I produced this book for my friend Stoney McGurn. He was born in 1941. It's his life story all the way up until a couple of years ago. The title of the book is And That's How It All Started. We are working on another book entitled That's How It All Ended. Let's see. You can buy the book on Amazon. It's also on audio. So it's only like $20. Good gift for someone if they like the book. My sponsors are Liffey Van Lines, moving company here in New York City, and they've been around longer than Jeopardy, longer than the New York City Marathon, running very, very smooth. They're happy to hear that the price of oil is coming down, because when oil comes down, hopefully fuel comes down, and hopefully they can pass that on to the customer. And they're trimming out their overheads, so their costs are coming down for them. Shout out to the Irish Examiner USA, Paddy McCarthy. Lots of events always on that newspaper, especially coming up to summertime festivals, and I will have a lady on in a couple of weeks. Terry Patterson, I think, is her name. And she's running a festival up in the Catskills. She's 90 years old. She's originally from Kerry or Dublin. One day it changes every day. Maybe her husband is from Kerry and she's from Dublin. Look forward to interviewing her. Shout out to the Irish Stew. It's another Irish podcast. They had an outdoor upstairs in Ryan's Daughter last week. And they had some great guests. It was great to see a podcast being done live. I'm usually here and my guest is somewhere else. And my guest has been on before. I'll come to him in a minute. So John Lee and Martin Nutty, they had some guests on, and they had two of the actresses from the movie Derry City, soap opera, I guess, whatever you want to call it. And then at halftime, John Lee threw some questions out to the audience. And I did ask the two girls, where will they be, or where do they see themselves 5 years from now? My guest today is Tim O'Hanlon. Tim was on here, I think, in January with me, and we had a good conversation. We talked about a lot of things. I just want to follow up with Tim today, and later on I'll ask him the same question I asked the two girls. Where does he see himself 5 years from now? But we'll leave that question till the end. Tim, welcome back.
Thank you, John. It's great to be back. It's great to be back with some good weather. I remember when we talked in January, there was snow on the ground, but now weather's looking good. We just had Easter, and now the baseball season is well underway. Of course, I'm happy that the Mets are doing great. So it's thank you for having me on. It's good to catch up.
Okay, and tell me, I remember last time you were getting ready to go to, I know you're studying in Fordham University, and you're also an accountant. I assume you're an accountant by now, and you were going on to look at work in Price Waterhouse, I think. Is that still on your menu?
Oh, yes. I have the offer. I've accepted, and now my start date is going to be in September. So I graduate in 3 weeks from Fordham with my bachelor's degree.
Good.
And so over the summer, I'm going to spend time studying for the CPA exam. It's 4 sections. It's very involved. It's similar to for lawyers taking the bar exam. So it's a lot of studying. So that's on my plate, and then start the full-time job in September.
Okay, well, I wish you well in that, and I'm sure you will do well in that. The other thing you mentioned, I guess we'll have to get into it with the recent trends with politics and that, is you are involved with the Republican Party at Fordham University. I think you told me that, and you also mentioned that you like to gamble a bit, but you don't gamble, something like that. You can explain that to me again. So let me see, since last January, and I suppose the big thing that people talk about is tariffs, okay? And then the effect of tariffs locally and globally and all that. You're an accountant, so you can explain to my listeners what a tariff is to start with, okay? Thank you.
A tariff is an import tax, is a tax on foreign imports. If you buy a product overseas and made in another country and you ship it to the United States, you have to pay an extra tax on that. And the United States has used tariffs more often, sometimes over the course of the last 200 years. Depends on the party in power, depends on the administration. And it's not something that is a big thing that historically the Republicans have always been in favor of, or something that the Democrats have always been in favor of. But it's something that President Trump is in favor of. He sees that within Middle America, a lot of factory jobs have closed over the last few decades, and he's looking to bring manufacturing jobs back. So that's one of the reasons that he is in favor of tariffs.
Okay. So am I right in saying that the tariff ultimately is a tax, as you say, but it's paid by the American consumer? So toys are the big item that comes from China. I'm lucky I don't have any children, so I don't have to buy any toys. That solves my problem there with not buying toys and not paying the tariff. But let's say a young family and they have 3 or 4 kids running around, comes up to Christmas to buy toys. Toys are made in China. Now they're going to be paying for a toy they paid, much of the toy. Toy, say $50, and now the toy is $100. So that's the American consumer paying I can't really tell them stop having babies. Well, I could say it, but they don't necessarily take my advice. So am I right in saying the American customer is going to pay the tariff?
So it's like the toy manufacturer that has the factory plant in China would
Okay.
initially have to pay the tariff, but in turn, yes, consumers are definitely going to be paying
Okay.
for it, and that's one of the big concerns with the tariffs, and that's
Mm,
something that even myself, I am a Republican. I did vote
mm,
for President Trump. I support President
right,
Trump, but it's concerning. It's
right.
concerning, definitely.
Okay, I suppose to go in a little bit more on the tariff thing, we can stay with the example of the family with the babies. They can decide buying toys is a discretionary income. Kids could give them a couple of apples and two oranges and create a game for them to play and then enjoy the fruit and its nutrition. And they can hopefully do that for $20 instead of $100. There's a lot of discretionary income that people can make a decision if they want to buy something in China or if they want to buy something locally. They have the choice. So the American consumer, I think, maybe better than many times, has more income. I think has more savings. And you look like a frugal young man. You probably still have your communion money, so you have savings put away. You have savings stashed away for a rainy day. And I'm sure you've heard that expression coming from Irish parents, the rainy day, and a lot of rainy days in Ireland. So, what's your view on that in terms of savings? Or are people saying, now I got to keep the savings tighter?
Saving money is, in my view, based on what my grandparents have taught me, is incredibly important no matter what the tariff or the economic
Right.
situation is. Whenever you have a job and you get your paycheck, you say, okay, this money goes to rent, this money goes to
Okay.
grocery, this money goes to clothes. There should be a set amount
Okay.
based on your situation that you should just save away for the future, for anything, for a rainy
Right.
day, for if you have kids, for your kids'
Yeah.
education, for retirement, for anything.
Okay.
And but one of the things that this tariff thing is concerning for a lot of people is the fact that if prices go up, how much more am I going to be able to
Yeah.
save? So
Yeah. Well,
it's
I think we're in agreement there because like they and the family can make the decision. I mean, I had Paul Mooney on here. He's a bar and restaurant owner, and two of his customers, Paddy Murphy and Lucy Ward, they like to go in on a weekend. Paddy likes smoked salmon. He likes avocado salad on the side. He likes Hennessy brandy. So the brandy is French. The avocado is Mexican. The smoked salmon could be Irish, Canadian, or Alaskan. So there's a tariff on all of those. His girlfriend's not too classy, but she likes to drink tequila. Tequila comes from Mexico. On a weekend, if they were spending $300, now that weekend could be $600. And Paul Mooney, the owner of the Milton, he didn't seem overly concerned. He said, look, if they can afford it, they want to come to the Milton. He referred to going to the Milton as an experience. And I agree, I've been to the Milton, and it is an experience. But it can be a costly experience if you're there with your girlfriend and it's going to cost you $300 or $400, $500 if you're hanging out for a whole weekend. So, what's your view on the overall lifestyle, shall we say?
it's something that, at least for me, especially I can relate to that. We talked about Donovan's Pub last time,
Right,
an ideal, whether it's before or after a Mets game on like a Saturday, go in, get their famous burger, get a few pints of Smithwick's,
right,
listen to music. If that price, if they have to raise prices because of these tariffs, then that's something that I'm going to be affected to. What am I going to do?
right,
Am I going to, that's adjustments that have to be made. But in terms
right.
of the overall theme of tariffs, I'm in favor of the president using tariffs as maybe a negotiating tool, a bargaining
Okay,
tool, saying we need to come to an agreement here. I'm going to raise tariffs, but
okay,
this whole thing that if it results in doubling prices, then that should not be used. Because if look
yeah,
at the stock market has a lot of volatility right now, and a lot of
okay,
people are concerned. So it needs to be used as a bargaining tool, but it should not result in the price of
okay,
food, the price of luxury items doubling.
okay. Well, that's very compassionate of you to say that. Another question I have, and I want my listeners to tune in, turn the volume up if you have volume on your podcast, and do subscribe if you like the podcast. Is I think like was last January we had a conversation here on It's Good to Talk, and the president was only I think he was in January 20th. But let's say I asked you or I asked my listeners 4 months ago. 4 months ago, are you better off now than you were 4 months ago? And that's for my listeners and for you. Or do you perceive you're better off now, or do you perceive you're worse off now than you were 4 months ago?
I definitely I perceive myself to be, I'm better off now with President Trump in office than I was with Joe Biden as president.
Okay.
Now, I think there's a few key components there. Number one, if you look at safety and just the theme of immigration, if you
Okay.
look at the migrant crisis,
Okay.
border crossings are down 95%. I think that's a
Okay.
great thing. and Trump is following through on that. The streets are safer, and if you look at public approval ratings, it's above 50% of the American people support his handling of immigration. It's been in the news. That's a good thing. But the one key component that is missing is the economy. I think most Americans are saying the economy has not gotten better. Maybe the price of gas has gone down, but overall the price of food, and now with the tariffs, the market volatility, that hasn't gotten better. So that's the key component that's missing right now is the economy. That's something that has to be done
I
within the
totally
next 2
agree with you
years.
there, and I do keep an eye on the oil because I'm close consultant to Liffey, and oil is a cost, and oil has come down. I think since I kept an eye on it from 90, 80, $70 down now to below 70, down to mid 60s, and I could see it coming below 60, but I wouldn't want it to come too much below that because then there are other peripheral effects when things like that happen. So another question linked to the same thing is 4 months ago, perception the world has, Europe, Canada, Mexico, and Asia, compared to 4 months ago, is it worse? Foreigners and the world and countries in general look at America as not so nice compared to 4 months ago. Have we rattled cages?
That's a very good question. I think overall, in terms of the foreign leadership, I think the fact that after Trump announced the tariffs, so many countries are looking to talk to him to just, hey, let's negotiate this. Let's have a conversation of how we want to deal with this. I think that's a good thing. But in terms of overall perception, I think there are many countries overseas that see President Trump as he just cares about Americans. He's not compassionate. He doesn't care about just pulling out of the Paris climate agreement. I can understand people overseas not liking it. But overall, the question is, President Trump is the president for America. He's our president. So I'm not concerned if people in Europe and Asia, just the overall citizens, don't like him because he's our president. He's using our taxpayer money. So I think that's the concern should be, what do American citizens and what he's doing for us.
Well, he knows how to spend the taxpayers' money when it comes to himself because he does like himself. So I think, I recently, or last week, Pope Francis passed away, and I guess you could say that Donald Trump could take a page out of his copybook and show a bit more compassion to people less well off. I'm going to call Jimmy. Jimmy, can you sing a song today for Tim O'Hanlon and my listeners and his family?
On the banks of the roses, my love and I sat down, and I took out me fiddle to play me love a tune. In the middle of the tune, she sighed and she said, "Harry Johnny, lovely Johnny, won't you leave me?" Now when I was a young lad, I heard my father say he'd rather see me dead than buried in the clay, sooner than be married to any runaway by the lovely sweet banks of the roses. Now I am no runaway, and soon I'll let them know that I can take a bottle or leave it alone. The mother that doesn't want me can keep her daughter home, and Johnny will go roaming with another. If ever I get married, 'twill be in the month of May, when the fields are so green and the meadows are so gay. Me and my true love will sit and sport and play by the lovely sweet banks of the roses. On the banks of the roses, my love and I sat down, and I took out me fiddle to play me love a tune. In the middle of the tune, she sighed and she said, "Ara Johnny, lovely Johnny, won't you leave me?"
So back to you. Last time I had you on, you also mentioned about, I don't know, was it gambling or sports teams? Am I right?
What it is that within Fordham, I've been the treasurer of the Fordham Sports Analytics Society. So what that means is we look at all of the stats in sports. So take baseball. How many hits a player gets, how many home runs, RBIs, steals, his on-base percentage, slugging percentage for pitchers, strikeouts, wins, losses, ERA, the whip. And so what we can do based on that data is predict what may happen in a game, what's more likely to happen, the team's winning odds. And some people can take that data and use it for gambling. Like I keep a scorecard for every baseball game. People say, "Oh, are you going to, bet on the game?" Whether it's through because so many apps now you can bet on your phone. Things like over under how many strikeouts, how many home runs. I choose not to do that because I'd be nervous that I'd lose money on the deal and it wouldn't be a fun project for me. But a lot of our club members, a lot of my friends that do keep stats will gamble a little bit and then help their friends out.
Okay, well that's interesting. It's always good to help your friends out. So speaking of helping friends out, a few days ago or a week ago, Donald Trump announced that he's willing to give $5,000 to young women that get pregnant. What's your view on that? Is that a gamble?
So I understand the reasoning behind it. I understand the fact that U.S. is experiencing historically low birth rates, lower fertility rates.
Okay.
And that's concerning given if you look at an age triangle. So if you look at the older generations, people in their 50s, 60s, 70s, as they get older and they leave the workforce and they start collecting Social Security, if there's less younger people that have jobs that are paying into Social Security, what happens when they get older? Is that going to run out? Is it just and are we going to experience a population decline similar to what's going on in Japan? Well, now, in terms of just $5,000 for married couples to have kids, I don't know if I question the scale of it.
Is it just for
implementation? I think it's just it might be just for married couples. I'm not 100% sure.
God, you took the wind out of my sails now. I thought I could meet a girl and have sex and she has a baby and then it's $5,000 for her. I'm generous too. Anyways, I think you explained it. Well, I remember in China when they had the opposite problem. They didn't want families to have any more than 2 babies. And if they had more than 2 babies, they put a tariff on the parents to stop them fucking around. So those 2 babies was maximum. They didn't want no more than 2 because they had the problem of overpopulation. Europe, on the other hand, especially Germany and France, like when they had a shortage of workers, as you say, they had the thing in Deutsch sehr schlecht, where they called guest workers. And that would be students like yourself from all other countries would come to work for the summer months. It'd be a bit like here in New York or upstate New York, where Mexicans come to pick fruit during the summertime or other farm work. So give me your thoughts on that from your point of view as an accountant.
I think that it's something definitely to look into. I'd like the idea of creating an incentive to bring about the change you want to have. So $5,000 offer, I'm questioning the scale of it. I'm questioning its implementation.
Okay.
But in terms of, if you look at what you mentioned, China there, I think if there's overpopulation, the fact that you're taxing mothers on having more than 2 children, I think that's an awful disgrace, quite frankly, both as just a Catholic and the idea that you can punish people for having more than 2 kids.
No, I agree with you. I agree. Like my mother, if she was alive, she'd love to get paid $5,000 for every child because I'm the youngest of 10. She'd be sitting on 50 grand right now. Well, after having me, worth it. But I see other issues with the $5,000 incentive for women, whether they're married, we assume they're married, to have babies. I mean, even recently here at Liffey, some of the employees, it's mandatory for a woman getting pregnant to have, I think, 3 months off. Then this other new thing came in where the husband has to get 3 months off, and it's called bonding. I don't remember anything like this when I was growing up, and it's totally new to me. So now you're employing, say, a staff of 100 people. Let's say a number of them get pregnant, get knocked up. They have a baby. They need the 3 months off if that's a female. Now, if you have a male working for you, he didn't have the baby. It takes 2 to tangle and 1 to carry the baby, and he gets 3 months off. That's a cost to the company, right or wrong?
Yeah, it is a cost for the company. The fact that so husband and wife are married, the wife has a baby, obviously the wife gets maternity leave. The husband getting 3 months paid leave, it is becoming a thing that's offered now, I think just because of equality but that's something that I would never even think of if I'm ever blessed to have children. Trust me, I'm not taking 3 months off of work to be at home. Some people may do that. I don't know why. You do you, but it's not something that I would do.
Well, it's not something I would do either.
If you're going to spend 3 months at home with the baby, not working, it just seems like it's kind of a go out and work, and also just too much togetherness can be a problem sometimes.
Yeah, that's true. And some of the guys I know, I wouldn't trust them breastfeeding anything, to be quite honest. I wouldn't have them feed a cat. But okay, back to where we are again. So, like Trump, as we call him, he's only like 3 months in. Where do you see it going, the trajectory of what other improvements can he do? Or is he like, liable to create more damage than good? It's like the old Turkish saying, a clown can go into a palace and think he's a king, when in fact the clown in the palace turns the palace into a circus. Like your friend, the last time you mentioned you like J.D. Vance, you read a book about him being a hillbilly. In Belmullet and Mayo, there's a saying, you can take the man out of the bog, but you can't take the bog out of the man. Is J.D. Vance letting you down a little bit?
Well, I've heard him speak. I think he's the fact that, number one, his age, the fact that he's younger, more energy. I think he's a great public speaker. I would like to see him more on the forefront of immigration, the economy, and just maybe have him more involved in the dealings. So now the overall goal should be, I would like him to run for president 4 years from now. I'd like him but now that's 4 years from now. Anything could happen, and that's
definitely.
But I think if he runs, he'll be my first choice. But again, there's no debates, there's no converse about policies. I'm a fan of J.D. Vance, so we're going to have to just wait and see.
Donald Trump is very volatile. I mean, he could fire anyone in the moment, like the head of the guy that was doing not chat calls, but group text, or whatever you call it, in high-level security. Like that would be very high risk. What's your view on that?
Oh, that was very embarrassing.
It
was Pete Hegseth. Somebody should be fired. Maybe not Pete Hegseth, but somebody should be severely punished for that. The fact that in unsecured phone messages we're going back and forth about the Secretary of Defense as opposed to a closed system.
Yeah. It's
just one word to describe that: embarrassing. Can't happen again.
Yeah, no, definitely. Okay, it's embarrassing. Okay, but life has to go on. Now, if you take some other clients, officials, like RFK, I don't think he's a qualified medical doctor, but he does make some big decisions. Like what he's saying about the measles is something I don't agree with. I think there should be, there was always a vaccine, I thought, for measles, and measles was the old school statement about children that are autistic, and he got it totally wrong from the point of view of most people that I know that have children that have this condition. And he was saying they can't get in a relationship, they can't pay tax, they can't work. And a lot of them do work and a lot of them do pay tax. And so he got that completely, wherever his knowledge is coming from, it's certainly lacking, I think. Would you rate him out of 10? Would you give him 5?
5, maybe 6 on some things. But the autism thing, the notion that people with autism can't have jobs, can't take care of themselves, can't pay taxes is completely wrong. I've known many people that have autism and they're able to function, they're able to take care of themselves. And when things that they struggle with in other areas, they overperform with. They're very knowledgeable in certain things, and they can be a great addition to our communities everywhere, to different jobs. So the fact that autism diagnosis has gone up over the last few decades, something to look at. Is it because of certain medications, certain foods that RFK mentioned, or is it because autism is on a spectrum? Is it because some people that maybe wouldn't have been diagnosed years ago are now being diagnosed as on the autism spectrum?
Well,
it's something to look at, but they just people that deserve dignity, respect, and can definitely have jobs and perform.
Well, I think I'll take that as a compliment to being slightly autistic myself. And it's nice to get a compliment from you, Tim, because you seem like an intelligent person. But just because someone has a bad past doesn't mean they can't have a bright future. So, and that goes for anybody, with good education, good upbringing. Like, you're lucky to have both of those. You're a very lucky young man, I think. Good parents, good upbringing, good education, good future. I don't necessarily have to agree with everything you believe in, because your beliefs are your beliefs and my beliefs are my beliefs. And that can be over the fact maybe of an age difference or point of view, or where I've lived or where I come from and where you live and where you see the world going forward, But, that's good to have diversity. That's what makes America great. And America was great all the time. It doesn't have to be great again, because America was always great. It was great for your parents. It was great for everybody. So what else, Tim, do we have to add going forward? Where do you see Trump at the end of the year, say next January, when I'll have you back again at Christmas?
That's going to, number one is, what can Trump do better? I think let's extend the tax cuts, because Republicans have majority of the House, majority of the Senate. Those Trump tax cuts in 2017 that are set to expire, let's extend those tax cuts, because that was part of his agenda. And that's something that I'm waiting for. Like, now is Like now's the time to do it to help stimulate economic growth for small businesses, for people, and continue on most things. I'll say this right here: the fact that biological men playing in women's sports, I have a huge problem with that, and I think he's headed in the right direction on that. And the deportations of people with criminal records keep going on with that. It's time will tell. But this year is big for the midterms.
Like we mentioned Elon Musk before. As I call him, a white South African telling everybody in America what to do. He has 13 kids, and I think he has someone else knocked up again, so there's another baby on the way, it's 14. I think he keeps them all in some compound. His eldest daughter is older than you, actually. I think she's 22 or 23, and she's has her issues as to her sexuality. I think she's transsexual. So I don't see any reason for me, if I met her, not to have a conversation with her, to dislike her, because I don't know her. So I have no reason not to like her. And just because I don't agree with her father doesn't mean I can't have a conversation with her. So that's where I would kind of say, like, will he collect the $5,000? That's my next question. But Elon Musk, he seems to have stepped back because his own product, the car, the Tesla, seems to be having difficulty. And as a marketing guy myself, if I was his consultant, right now he should be focusing on the Tesla and consider changing the name of the Tesla to a different brand name. Take the Tesla sticker off it and call it John and Tim Go Far, as a car. That's the slogan, isn't it? So what else have we to talk about going forward with Trump? What's your views on, I know that Pope Francis passed away, there will be a conclave. I think it's about 135 and 37 other men have to decide who the next pope is going to be. Do you have a favorite in mind, or are you going to bet on this, or you're not going to bet?
Not going to bet on it. So with these cardinals, I haven't seen them all speak on a regular basis. There's a cardinal from, I think, Africa that I've heard good things about. There's a cardinal from Italy. There's a cardinal from, I think, Sri Lanka as well. And I think of all the contenders, I have confidence that the Cardinals going to Rome right now are going to make a good decision for the church. And I think it was sad for Pope Francis to pass. I know that he's regardless of he's been considered more on the liberal side on when it comes to speaking on issues of immigration, issues of LGBT, and I think regardless of what you agree with him on that is, we got to remember, he's not a politician. He's not elected. He's not doing anything with taxpayer money. He can say whatever he wants. And no doubt that he dedicated his life to Christ, to promoting the church, promoting faith. And for that, him and his family, God bless him. And I hope we find another great pope.
But you mentioned there about the Pope not being political, but popes in the past, like Pope John Paul II, I think, he was from the Polish Pope from Warsaw. He was very political in terms of changing things that were happening in the world. Pope Francis said only 3-4 weeks ago that the Trump shipping people out, not checking to make sure they were innocent or not innocent, with no regard for their wives or babies or anything like that. And the Pope's last word was that he said, this is going to end badly. That's a big statement for a Pope that's on his deathbed.
Yes, it is. I disagree with that thing that's saying that it's just automatically going to end badly. I think it's, but again, he has the right to say that, and his perspective is of a religious perspective. Someone who's, and also he's not American. He's from Argentina. But he has the right to say whatever he wants.
And we're all entitled to our opinion.
But ultimately, in terms of just people getting deported with families, if an American citizen commits a crime, like somebody like me, if I go out and I rob a bank and I were to go say, okay, you're going to jail. If I have a wife and kids, should I not go to jail? So the family conversation here, I think, is used can be misleading sometimes. With what the Pope said.
Okay, fair enough. I'll take your opinion on that. Something that happened in oftentimes. It's like necessity being the mother of invention. Like there when President Trump had the president of El Salvador over, and all of a sudden a light went on in Trump's head, and there's a lot of space in there for a light to go on. And he figured that it might be, and maybe it was just me dreaming, and it's not a bad idea, that a lot of the jails and prisons here in America and even Rikers Island Like the cost of keeping a prisoner for a day is like the cost of staying in a hotel. And if this is not Trump's idea, you can email him and Twitter him and tell him, like, why don't we export our prisoners to a country where the cost of prison is cheaper? Like El Salvador seems to be one in particular where they can say, okay, give us 3 million prisoners and we'll charge you $10 a day as opposed to you paying $100 a day. Have you a view on that, or is it a bit radical?
I strongly disagree with that. If you're a United States, if you're a U.S. citizen and you commit any kind of crime and you're sentenced to go to prison or county jail or any kind of jail time, you should be in an American prison, and in the American prison system, you should not be shipped off to a foreign country like El Salvador or anywhere with outside the 50 states. So I disagree with that. I understand the cost of prisons is very high, and it's taxpayer expense definitely, but we should not be shipping American citizens off to like you're under foreign jurisdictions. And if President Trump said that, then I disagree with him on that.
Well, okay. Well, you explained it well, and you actually converted my view on that one. Because then I would say, okay, if American tourists go to Moscow for 3 or 4 weeks, I've been there myself, and they get arrested for something as simple as smoking a joint or something like that they would do here casually in Harlem or in the Bronx without even thinking. And then they have to go to jail for 4 years because President Putin doesn't like smoking, and he only likes tea. He likes a good tea, and maybe it's a China tea. But, relations between China and Russia are always kind of lukewarm, or even better than lukewarm. So anything else, Tim, to add before we sign out today?
Well, thank you for bringing me back. Thank you. It's great to be back here talking about current events, talking about so it's great that we're having this conversation. And
of course,
I just hope that President Trump, I hope that what he said, he had some pretty lofty goals, just pretty extensive goals in his campaign. I hope that he follows through.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the economy, that's one thing that he really needs to focus on, because the money people have in their wallets, people see their checks coming, they see the prices at the grocery store, they see the prices of rent, all those things. Because we have midterms elections next year, so I hope it goes well for us. But it's the ball's in our court. We as deliver.
In summary, I guess we should say that Elon Musk should focus more on his car business, the Tesla. That, go back to what you're good at or what you should be good at, and let the president mind his business, which is taking care of America. Hopefully we have a new pope. Hopefully he's somewhat liberal, maybe not as liberal as you'd like, but liberal enough that I might say, okay, we need a good, solid presence in the Catholic Church. The church itself needs strength at the top, needs good leadership at the top. If you don't have a good leader at the top, things get weak at the bottom, and we've seen this with incidents of sex abuse and the clergy and all that. And that needs to be cleaned up and straightened up, and should have been done in the past better than the effort that they made. And maybe the same.
Absolutely.
And maybe the same goes up for President Trump in picking who he is working in the White House's cabinet. I mean, some people would say you could get a better cabinet in IKEA. But enough said. I hope that we get a good pope. Let's pray for the pope. We pray for President Trump, and hopefully he has time to relax and play a game of golf on the weekends and not go too crazy. So
he does like his golf. He does like his golf.
Like his golf. And if you start betting on your sports team, I think you might have a business there. You don't need to bet yourself, but you can always get people to bet and pay a subscription to you for your advice. So, Tim, I'm going to say goodbye. I'm going to sign out in my Irish language again, which is Slán. Slán go fóill means goodbye for now. Beis Géal means we have a story. Beis Géal means we will have another story. And it's good to talk. If you like the podcast, subscribe. So we're going to sign out today in the European National Anthem, Ode to Joy.